for more on the aircraft market in China. I'm joined by airline analyst Scott Hamilton. Once again, he's the managing director of aviation consulting firm Leeham Company. Good to see you, Scott. Look, I mean, this is not new because we've known this has been coming into place for the past couple of years. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the 919 plane?
Well, it's clearly China's first mainline jet effort. It's going to take, I think, longer than they would hope to get it into the sky. The last EIS entry into service I saw was projected to be 2018. I think it'll probably be a little bit later than that. But the Chinese, of course, is a very patient culture. This is a national priority, and I think that over 10 years, 20 years, China's going to have a viable commercial aviation industry.
You know, and it's not just China, right? Russia is also trying getting in on it. There's a big Canadian company out there, Brazilian company. I mean, there are a lot of manufacturers of these single-aisle planes. Some we call regional jets, but some a little bit bigger. You call them mainline jets. Is there enough space? Is there enough demand for all of these different players out there?
The Boeing demand for single-aisle jets, I think, is around 25,000 airplanes over 20 years. Airbus is a similar projection. The Russian MC-21, which is the same size as the C919, the A320, the 737, is another project that is probably still several years away from entry into service. The Bombardier C-Series, the Canadian company you referred to, is at the smaller end of the spectrum. It's below 150 seats. The Brazilian company Embraer is even smaller than that, around 125 seats. So I think there is room for a COMAC C919. There is room for a Russian MC-21. But those, I think, for these efforts are going to be mostly in the home markets, not so much the foreign markets.
This FAA certification issue, it's a big deal. Help our viewers out who aren't familiar with how the airlines and new aircraft work. Why is that needed, the FAA certification, and how does that work?
Well, without the FAA certification or the European equivalent, which is called EASA, E-A-S-A, European something or other, you really need to have those kinds of certifications that will enable the airplanes to operate in this case, Western environments as opposed to the Chinese environment or the Russian environment. If the airplane doesn't get an FAA certification or an EASA certification, you just simply can't sell it to a U.S. airline or another European airline or even some of the other Asian carriers.
Is it a safety issue? Is it about the safety tests and the tests of the planes while I'm assuming they're in testing mode right now? Is that what needs to qualify it?
Well, yeah, it's certification that the airplane is safe to operate by whomever. If you don't have that kind of certification, of course, the FAA has been around since 1959, I think it is, and before that, the Civil Aeronautics Administration. The EASA is just a conglomeration of whatever the European authorities were. And those are the gold standards of commercial aviation. If you don't have that, you're very limited as to where you can fly your airplane.
You know, the timing of this is quite interesting. We just got a big announcement of the Boeing final assembly plant in China, and then we also got the new order out of Airbus. They already have a plant building the 320s over there as well. Both of these companies, what do you think they're thinking?
Yeah, well, in the Boeing case, it's not actually a final assembly plant. It's called a completion center, where they install the interiors and paint the airplane. But it's not like the Airbus plant in Tianjin, which is indeed a final assembly plant. In China, you have to pay to play, is what it really boils down to. And if Boeing doesn't do this, it's going to lose sales to the central government, which still calls the shots on purchasing Western airplanes. And Airbus has got that assembly plant. It's putting in an A330 completion center, and you just have to pay to play.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself. Yeah, you're right. It's a final delivery center, not an assembly plant. Now, Scott, if you were advising China on this, okay, COMAC, they're going to try to sell these planes to all these international customers. What advice would you be giving them?
Well, to really get international customers, China is going to have to convince them, number one, that the airplane is certified by the Western authorities, safe to operate. Two, that it's economically competitive with the Boeing and Airbus products. Three, the capital cost is obviously going to be lower than Airbus and Boeing. But number four, how do they give the product support to the customers in Europe? How do they give the product support to the customers in South America? How do they give the product support to Australia, to the United States? China really does not have experience in giving international product support. And without that, they are going to have a devil of a time selling the airplanes.
All right, Scott, somehow I think they're probably listening to you right now. Good to see you. Thank you very much live for us in Seattle.